let us move on to the second trade, which is To Drown the World. And I think you have to bring up the elephant in the room, or maybe it's like a whale or a narwhal or something, since we're still very soaking wet here, which is that it's not G.H. Williams on art. And I think the first time I read this, I was like, it's Amy Reeder on art. And I think the first time I read this, I was just like, no more J.H. Williams, this sucks. And I was very quick to discount Amy Reeder. But if you look at what she's doing on Batwoman, she is maintaining J.H. Williams' look on her. Right. She's doing the very reflective surfaces, the stark black and white with all the detail in the hair. The thing that's really changed here is that it's not Dave Stewart on colors. It's a Guy Major on colors. And he actually does 3 issues from now kind of snap into that Dave Stewart color look where he separates the Batwoman scenes more from the non-Batwoman scenes. But to me, that is the most jarring part of this issue. It's a very good looking issue, but the colors are not separated the way they were in the Dave Stewart ones. And that, and reading it again and like evaluating my response, that's what makes the art change so jarring to me. It's not that it's not J.H. Williams.
Right. And it's something that I was kind of like, I was reading them back to back. So then all of a sudden when I came back to them, I'm like, things look different. And then, then I kind of went back and looked at that. I'm like, oh, okay. Because, it's like still says J.H. William Blackman on it. So I was like, oh, okay. So he's still the, still the artist. But then, then I went back. I'm like, oh, it's not him anymore.
And the other thing the one thing I will say, it's not against Amy Reeder, but that comes out by seeing other people draw Batwoman, is that her costume is a little awkward. And J.H. Williams, never makes it look awkward, but then to see somebody else drawing his model, it brings out some of the weirdness of it. Like the nose of the costume is so broad, and I'm sure that there's a reason for that, to distribute the blows she's taking to the face or something, but it just makes her face look really strange and square sometimes when these other artists are drawing the nose. And also the belt is so low around her hips that she has no butt, her legs just come right up to the belt, and it makes her figure look a little strange sometimes. Again, J.H. Williams somehow makes that look amazing. Even on the cover shot that we're using for this video, you can see, if you look at the whole thing, that her legs are tiny behind her. But J.H. Williams makes it work. But some of these other artists really have trouble drawing her model, I think.
And what really kind of stuck out for me, stuck out for me, was that in one of the panels, her belly button was shaped. It's as if her... Yeah, and to me, I was like, oh, come on. That's not, take it from a lady. If I'm wearing a clothes, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. So it was I'm like, oh, come on. Let's not do that. But yeah, so I think it was kind of one of those things, the shading issue, but well.
Yeah, and I think it always is she that much more attractive just because we can see her belly button through the clothing? No, and she's supposed to have this hardcore armor now from the DO.
Here, look at this. Look at this.
It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But what are you gonna do? So the other thing. So now that we've talked about the art, the other distinct thing about this To Drown the World story, it is extremely fractured. There are it starts sewing itself together almost like something being woven or braided, where at the end we're pretty much just looking at 3 different stories that are all happening at the same time. And at the beginning, they're separated by weeks and months. And it's reading okay for me, this read, but I originally read this in singles as it was coming out, and then I read it collected, and both of those times it was I really couldn't follow it. And I think that it's this time on reread, the narrative kind of makes sense, but I think J.H. Williams and Blackman maybe bit off a little bit more than they could chew narrative-wise, because it's just really hard to follow until you get to the last chapters and you realize how all the things come together.
Right. So here's the thing. I kind of always like that way of storytelling. I think it's J.R.R. Martin does it well for his Game of Thrones. There's different viewpoints and things are happening in all different times. And then at the end, it all comes together. So I really like that storytelling. So to me, it wasn't necessarily that bad, but I couldn't help but think, can you imagine reading this in single?
Yeah.
So, I'm not a single reader. Like, I wait for trades or hardcover or whatever it is that comes out. And the thing is, like, to me, is the idea was like, oh, okay, people would have to go back and read the previous issues all the time because, it's kind of a little bit all over the place. And there's like, 4 different storylines, like 4 different point of view. You have the Batwoman and also the villains.
Yeah, it's intense. So let's talk about what's actually happening here. Batwoman, through this series of investigations, which unspool throughout this arc as we get to see the stuff that happened earlier in time, winds up having a mole on the inside in the organization that called Medusa, which created the mythological La Llorona who's been drowning or at least taking away via water the kids. And she's not the only myth that they've got in their pocket. So they've turned Killer Croc into this like crazy mythological crocodile multi-eyed beast.
Right.
They also have Bloody Mary, which we won't say 3 times, just in case. But so they basically, their mission is like they're going to make Gotham into a place that has real monsters, not just these pretend monsters like Joker, or but they're going to make it a place that's a place rooted in myth. And so Batwoman has a woman on the inside, who she thinks she gets to defect, and she uses that to infiltrate. And along with the DEO to try to go in and try to take down this Medusa organization. And if you've been reading all of the Batman series at this point, you can't help but balance Medusa a little bit against Batman fighting against Leviathan and in Batman Inc. Because they're both these mythological beasts as organizations that are trying to like control the world, but as it turns out, in very different ways.
I was actually kind of comparing them with Court of Owls. Because that's kind of like a little bit similar as well. Yeah. Like, right, the same. Was it in the same time, or whatever the timeline? And that's when I was like, oh my god, how many things Gotham can handle? Oh my, like there's like Court of Owl things happening, then there's like this Medusa thing happening. There's like so much, so much going on at the same time. But so yeah.
The other thing that I really felt about this arc is, all of these multiple timelines, we do get a couple good moments with Kate along with Maggie as they think they're just on this yacht for a party, but really Kate's on a mission because the yacht belongs to the person with Medusa. But I really feel like all of these timelines and the intricacy of weaving them together, it kind of like, it stopped being a Batwoman story. Like I wasn't really feeling Batwoman the way that I was previously. And the thing that really like drove it home for me was in issue 8, she's in the DEO lab and she's getting outfitted for her mission. And it's like Batman has plenty of crazy gadgets and he's got, Lucius Fox to make them for him. But Batwoman just getting equipped with like, and this is a dart that works with your voice and these are electronic gauntlets. It just really took me out of the comic book. Like, even though she's talked about gear before and army stuff, something about it like really rubbed me the wrong way. Like, okay, this is Batman now. It's almost like we were turning her into Batman, but also kind of making her into the Mary Sue that Batman is, in that he's like never wrong and he always has a gadget. I'm like, that is not why I'm reading Batwoman. Stop it. Just let her figure it out.
Right. I think, and that's something that I've also seen. Like, there's way too many parallels between the two of them. Like, they like, she's still a rich socialite, and then she goes to parties and things like that. And I've seen in a couple of places where like Bruce Wayne stops becoming a Batman for a day and then goes to a party and try to gather intel and things like that. There's a lot of that, oftentimes. So I was kind of looking at it more in that way. I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess they're trying to make her look exactly like him. So I didn't necessarily care too much. And the thing is, like, it wasn't like that, oh, we interrupt this regular program just because she's going to go to a party. But it was still for the part of the story. So I didn't quite minded it that much.
And also, we finally get the colorist about halfway through the arc. He suddenly gets to that point that Dave Stewart was, where he's coloring with that flat indie look on the other scenes, and so it was just weird. It was like a weird push and pull. Like, I felt like the arc stopped feeling like Batwoman, but then the art started feeling like right to me because of the color differentiation, and it was just like a very strange. It's not very consistent, and it's just like a very strange push and pull. And then the other thing is that like they're playing at this flirtation between Batwoman and the woman she has inside in Medusa, and I just like don't buy it at all. Like she kisses Batwoman, and I'm just like, okay, so that's there. It just felt like very inauthentic to me.
Right, and the thing is that that's the same thing you would see in like so many Batman issues, like so many Batman comics is the same exact thing that he some random chick that he got to help him with will end up kissing him, and then so it's one of those. I mean I rolled my eyes a little bit. I'm like, ugh, here we go again. But I was like, if next panel shows that Maggie Sawyer watched them kiss, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah, and it's.
Thankfully, that didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't. It didn't wind up being a jealousy thing, which I think was a nice touch. But I come and go on it. Part of me felt like it was just kind of thrown in there, but a part of me thinks that it's intentional on the part of an author to be like, guess what? A female hero who is a lesbian can have just as many romantic dalliances and complications on her missions as Batman can on his. It's because that's the world. So like, I don't know, part of me like it's like how I felt about a lot of this arc. Like narratively, did I love it? No, although it did kind of create a little bit of a contrast with later in the next issue when Batwoman has to like briefly give her CPR. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, that's right. Batwoman makes out with chicks on missions. That happens. That like, cool. Batman does it sometimes too.
Right, and that's exactly how I looked at it though, because I was rolling my eyes. I'm like, ugh, superhero trope. So, and that's the thing. I didn't even look at it as like, oh my god, is she cheating on Maggie and stuff? I'm like, ugh, another superhero trope. And I mean, if I can forgive it in Batman, I forgive everything in Batman. So I can forgive it in this one too.